Look to the left. This castle once belonged to an ancient noble family. Why are you looking at it so strangely? Are there no ghosts in the building, or have you been listening to local stories and legends? If you decide to visit our city again, try not to pay attention to local folklore next time. The city guest smiled strangely, looked somewhere through the palace, and continued on her way again. And here on the right, look, is the Museum of Curiosities. It houses the Sultan's jewelry and ornaments, sharp sabers, and even a mummy from some distant land. Do you know what a mummy is? No. The visitor to the city did not know what a mummy was. The city guests never hear what I say to them. They always behave the same way. They smile strangely and try not to look me in the eye. I guess they are ashamed to show their fear. Those silly children and old men are always scaring travelers with their silly ghost stories. Some even come here on purpose to see the ghosts. The current guest of the city had already entered the local shop and was not going to leave it anytime soon. I had no one else to give tours, so I wandered slowly toward the museum. A cold wind blew, and my brother squeezed my hand tighter. He was a little kid, so I couldn't leave him home alone. I had to take him to work. I looked around at the once bustling but now empty square. Many of the huts and shacks had fallen apart, and the roofs of most of the houses were sagging and crumbling. They had once been inhabited by people. The stalls were full of wondrous goods, and the castle shone with prosperity. My brother and I walked slowly toward the museum. There was no hurry. Time had stopped in the city years ago. Somewhere, not far away, we heard a scream, and I turned around and saw that guest of the city. She was pointing at my brother and me and shouting something. The woman's reflection was visible in a huge puddle, and I involuntarily looked into the water and met my own gaze. Tangled, messy hair, once swarthy, but now gray-brown skin. White-gray eyes without irises or pupils. Blackened lips. It was no surprise at all that the traveler finally gave vent to her emotions and screamed. I looked around the square, meeting a couple of unfriendly glances from the locals. My brother and I weren't going to be tolerated here anymore. I gripped his hand tighter and walked slowly toward the exit. We walked along the bumpy road for a long time, many wagons leaving deep furrows in the road. A monotonous landscape of open fields with yellow grass and gray-green trees in the distance flashed before our eyes. No sound was heard for a long time, but then the clatter of wheels and the clatter of hooves broke the silence. We turned around and saw a flimsy, dilapidated wagon. The charioteer was dressed in ragged and tattered clothes, like the cart, and looked more like a bandit. "Do you need a ride?" the owner of the wagon asked in a colorless, quiet voice. If you don't mind." Get in. We cautiously got into the cart, which seemed even more flimsy and rickety up close. It creaked unpleasantly from our fiddling, and we tried not to move too much. The landscape was slowly changing. The dried-up field and grayish, green forest was replaced by bare patches of land, squelching wetly under the wheels and swamp. Apart from the clatter of wheels and the clatter of hooves, there was still no sound. It seemed as if all living creatures had long ago left the area. The cart suddenly stopped. The charioteer jumped to the ground, went to the bag lying in the cart, and took out an axe from it. Let's finish this quickly. You won't disturb the unfortunate people anymore. All they wanted was a quiet life." In a swift motion, the charioteer cut off first my brother's head, then mine. He put our bodies in separate sacks and threw them into the swamp. The desperate man hoped that he could kill those who did not live by simply severing the head from the body. In time, we could return again, settle in some other city. The unfortunate people just wanted a peaceful life. We too just want a peaceful existence where we won't be chased away. Someday, we'll find a settlement where they won't pay attention to our appearance, where we can impersonate living people with impunity.